2020 National Electrical Code, specifically Section 406.4 done, addresses the requirement for ground fault circuit interrupter, commonly known as GFCI, protection for receptacle outlets in dwelling units. This section stipulates that all 125 volt through 250 volt receptacles installed in locations specified in 406.4 D2 through 406.4 D7 must have GFCI protection. Now let's focus on dining room countertop surfaces that are not part of a kitchen countertop. According to the NEC, all receptacle outlets serving these dining room countertops require GFCI protection. This means that if you have a countertop in your dining room that is separate from your kitchen countertop, any receptacles installed on that dining room countertop must be GFCI protected. The purpose of GFCI protection is to protect individuals from electrical shock hazards. GFCIs work by monitoring the current flowing in a circuit. If there is a difference of even a few milliamperes between the current flowing into the circuit and the current flowing out, the GFCI will trip, quickly cutting off power to the circuit. This rapid response can prevent serious injury or even death from electrical shock. When installing GFCI protection for dining room countertop receptacles, it is important to follow all applicable electrical codes and standards. This includes using appropriate wiring methods, properly grounding the circuit, and ensuring that the GFCI device is properly installed and tested. There are several ways to provide GFCI protection for receptacle outlets. One common method is to install a GFCI receptacle at the point of use. A GFCI receptacle is a standard electrical receptacle that has built-in GFCI protection. When a ground fault is detected, the GFCI receptacle will trip, cutting off power to the receptacle. Another method is to install a GFCI circuit breaker in the electrical panel. A GFCI circuit breaker provides GFCI protection for the entire circuit. When a ground fault is detected, the GFCI circuit breaker will trip, cutting off power to the entire circuit. When selecting a GFCI device, it is important to choose one that is listed by a recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories, or This ensures that the device has been tested and meets applicable safety standards. It is also important to consider the amperage rating of the GFCI device. The amperage rating must be sufficient to handle the load of the circuit that it is protecting. In the case of a 13-foot-long countertop, it's likely you'll have multiple receptacles. So you'll need to calculate the load that will be used on those receptacles and choose the correct amperage. To ensure safety and compliance, it is always recommended to consult with a qualified electrician when installing GFCI protection for receptacle outlets. A qualified electrician can assess the specific requirements of your installation and recommend the appropriate GFCI protection solution. They can also ensure that the installation is done safely and in accordance with all applicable electrical codes and standards. Let's delve a little deeper into the specific requirements outlined in NEC Section 406.4d. This section is part of Article 406, which covers receptacles, cord connectors, and attachment plugs. The scope of Article 406 includes the construction, installation, and use of these electrical components. Section 406.4 specifically addresses the requirements for receptacle placement. Subsection D then narrows the focus to GFCI protection. Within subsection D, paragraph 1 clearly states the GFCI protection requirements for 125 volt through 250 volt receptacles in dwelling units as previously stated. The key takeaway is that if a receptacle outlet is serving a dining room countertop surface and that countertop is not part of the kitchen countertop, it requires GFCI protection. It is important to understand the distinction between a dining room countertop and a kitchen countertop. Kitchen countertops are typically defined as those surfaces used for food preparation, cooking, and cleanup. Dining room countertops, on the other hand, are generally used for serving food, displaying items, or providing a surface for dining. If a countertop is used for both kitchen and dining purposes, it may be subject to the GFCI requirements for kitchen countertops, which are often more stringent. It is crucial to verify local amendments, if any, to the NEC. Local jurisdictions may have adopted more restrictive requirements for GFCI protection. These amendments supersede the NEC requirements. Therefore, it is essential to check with your local building department or electrical inspector to determine if any local amendments apply to your installation. In addition to GFCI protection, it is also important to ensure that all receptacle outlets are properly grounded. Grounding provides a path for fault current to flow back to the electrical panel, which helps to protect against electrical shock hazards. All receptacles should be grounded to a properly installed grounding electrode system. This system typically includes a grounding electrode, such as a ground rod or ground plate, that is connected to the electrical panel with a grounding conductor. The grounding conductor is then connected to the grounding terminals of all receptacles and other electrical equipment. Regular testing of GFCI devices is essential to ensure their continued proper operation. GFCI receptacles and circuit breakers have a test button that can be used to verify that the device is functioning correctly. The test button simulates a ground fault condition, which should cause the GFCI device to trip and cut off power to the circuit. It is recommended to test GFCI devices at least once a month to ensure that they are working properly. If a GFCI device fails to trip when the test button is pressed, it should be replaced immediately. When replacing a GFCI device, it is important to choose a replacement that is compatible with the existing wiring and electrical system. It is also important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for installation and testing. If you are not comfortable replacing a GFCI device yourself, it is best to consult with a qualified electrician. They can ensure that the replacement is done safely and correctly. The National Electrical Code is updated every 3 years. It is important to stay informed of the latest changes to the code to ensure that your electrical installations are safe and compliant. You can obtain a copy of the NEC from the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, or from other sources. You can also find information about the NEC online. Staying up to date with the NEC is essential for anyone who works with electrical systems. It helps to ensure that electrical installations are safe and compliant with the latest standards. Consider the specific application of the dining room countertop. Will small appliances like coffee makers or blenders be used there? Such usage patterns increase the likelihood of ground faults due to spills or cord damage. This reinforces the importance of GFCI protection. Beyond code compliance, GFCI protection offers peace of mind. It provides an extra layer of safety for you, your family, and guests, reducing the risk of electrical shock in a potentially hazardous environment. Remember to properly label GFCI protected receptacles. This helps users understand which receptacles are protected and encourages them to test the GFCI devices regularly. Labeling is a simple but effective way to promote electrical safety. In summary, the 2020 National Electrical Code mandates GFCI protection for all 125V through 250V receptacles serving dining room countertops that are not part of a kitchen countertop. This requirement is intended to protect individuals from electrical shock hazards. It is important to follow all applicable electrical codes and standards when installing GFCI protection and to consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns. Regular testing of GFCI devices is also essential to ensure their continued proper operation. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure that your electrical installations are safe and compliant. Now, let's explore some frequently asked questions regarding GFCI protection. Firstly, what is a ground fault? A ground fault occurs when there is an unintended electrical path between a live conductor and ground. This can happen when a wire comes loose, insulation fails, or an appliance malfunctions. Secondly, how does a GFCI work? A GFCI monitors the current flowing in the hot and neutral wires of a circuit. If there is a difference of even a few milliamperes between the current flowing in and the current flowing out, the GFCI trips, cutting off power to the circuit. This rapid response can prevent serious injury or death from electrical shock. Thirdly, where else is GFCI protection required? GFCI protection is required in many locations, including bathrooms, kitchens, garages, unfinished basements, and outdoor areas. The specific requirements vary depending on the jurisdiction and the version of the NEC that is in effect. Fourthly, can I install a GFCI receptacle myself? While it is possible to install a GFCI receptacle yourself, it is generally recommended to consult with a qualified electrician. They can ensure that the installation is done safely and in accordance with all applicable electrical codes and standards. Fifthly, how do I test a GFCI receptacle? To test a GFCI receptacle, simply press the test button on the device. This should cause the receptacle to trip and cut off power to the circuit. If the receptacle does not trip, it should be replaced immediately. Sixthly, what if I have an older home without GFCI protection? If you have an older home without GFCI protection in required locations, it is recommended to have a qualified electrician install GFCI protection. This can significantly reduce the risk of electrical shock hazards. Seventhly, can I use an extension cord with the GFCI receptacle? It is generally not recommended to use extension cords with GFCI receptacles. Extension cords can be damaged or frayed, which can increase the risk of electrical shock. If you must use an extension cord, make sure it is in good condition and is rated for the intended use. Eighthly, what is the difference between a GFCI receptacle and a GFCI circuit breaker? A GFCI receptacle provides GFCI protection at the point of use, while a GFCI circuit breaker provides GFCI protection for the entire circuit. Both types of devices offer effective GFCI protection. Ninthly, how much does it cost to install GFCI protection? The cost of installing GFCI protection can vary depending on the location, the type of device being installed, and the electrician's labor rates. It is best to obtain quotes from several qualified electricians before making a decision. Tenthly, where can I find more information about GFCI protection? You can find more information about GFCI protection from the National Fire Protection Association, the Electrical Safety Foundation International, and your local building department. Remember, GFCI protection is a critical safety feature that can help to protect you and your family from electrical shock hazards. Ensure that you have GFCI protection in all required locations and test your GFCI devices regularly to ensure that they are working properly. By following these guidelines, you can help to create a safer electrical environment in your home. Another crucial aspect to consider is the proper wiring of GFCI receptacles. Incorrect wiring is a common cause of GFCI malfunction. When replacing a standard receptacle with a GFCI receptacle, it's essential to identify the line and load wires correctly. The line wires are the incoming power supply from the electrical panel, while the load wires supply power to downstream receptacles or devices. GFCI receptacles are clearly marked with line and load terminals. Connecting the wires to the wrong terminals will prevent the GFCI from functioning properly and may even damage the device. If you are unsure about the wiring, consult with a qualified electrician. Another important point is the compatibility of GFCI devices with different types of wiring systems. Older homes may have ungrounded wiring systems, which can present challenges for GFCI installation. In these cases, it may be necessary to install a GFCI circuit breaker instead of GFCI receptacles or to rewire the circuits to provide a proper ground. Working with ungrounded wiring systems can be dangerous, so it's always best to consult with a qualified electrician before attempting any modifications. Also, consider the aesthetic aspects of GFCI receptacles. GFCI receptacles are available in a variety of colors and styles to match your decor. You can choose from standard white receptacles or opt for designer colors or finishes. It is also possible to purchase GFCI receptacles with built-in night lights or other features. The choice is yours. Proper maintenance of GFCI receptacles is also crucial. Over time, GFCI receptacles can become dusty or dirty, which could affect their performance. Clean the receptacles regularly with a soft cloth to remove any dirt or debris. Avoid using harsh chemicals or abrasive cleaners, as these can damage the receptacle. In addition, ensure that the receptacles are properly secured to the wall. Loose receptacles can be a safety hazard. If a receptacle is loose, tighten the mounting screws or replace the receptacle altogether. Remember, GFCI protection is not a substitute for safe electrical practices. Always follow basic electrical safety rules, such as avoiding contact with water when using electrical appliances, and never overloading circuits. By combining GFCI protection with safe electrical practices, you can create a safer electrical environment for yourself and your family. So, to reiterate, if you are dealing with a dining room countertop that is separate from the kitchen countertop, the receptacles serving that countertop must be GFCI protected. This is not just a suggestion, it is a requirement according to the 2020 National Electrical Code. Following this code helps ensure safety for everyone.